Hi, I'm Joe from As the Joe Flies,
And I'm Leslie from Trips with Tykes.
and welcome back to Disney Deciphered. So it's been a few months, Leslie, since we've done a ride guide. For those of you who are new listeners or haven't heard a ride guide before, we take a couple of Walt Disney World attractions and break them down, let you know everything you need to know about them normally so that you can figure out whether you want to go with your kids on these attractions. But we're taking two classic attractions that you're probably going to go with your kids on. And then at the end, we give a ranking to each of the attractions, S through F, a la the Japanese S tier scale. So, Leslie, what classic attractions are we going over today?
All right, we're doing Peter Pan's Flight and It's a Small World. So, yes, two very classic Disney attractions. And I'm excited. I'm kind of surprised we haven't hit these before. But, like you say, these are ones that I guess people don't often have to decide about because they're just givens, right?
Yes, and we should say that we also talk about how to minimize your wait time in line, which is going to be much more relevant for Peter Pan's Flight, which is going to be the first attraction that we're talking about today. And I did the research for this one, so let's get right to it. Now, Peter Pan, it is one of the original attractions that opened up at Disneyland. And one thing that I didn't know, Leslie, was back then you were supposed to be like you were Peter Pan, like you were it was like his point of view, and I guess people didn't get that.
This is something that I guess they did for a lot of the rides at Disneyland, the OG dark rides, because it was the same for the Snow White's ride. Like you were supposed to be Snow White, and people were like, "Where's Snow White?" So yeah, I didn't realize that was the same thing at Disneyland because the only version I've known has Peter in it.
Yes, we're old, but not that old, Leslie. So Disney learned the lesson, and when the attraction came to Disney World, it actually did not open on opening day in 1971 at Walt Disney World. It opened 2 days later. But what they did is, the concept that we have now, they made these audio animatronics. Peter is there, and you're kind of watching the story. And what the attraction is today is the attraction that, it's very similar to the one in Disneyland. And of course, they updated the Disneyland one too. I think that was in 1983. Now, one nice thing about both these attractions today, there's no height requirements. I've definitely taken a baby in a baby carrier on both of these. And so you don't have to worry about any of that. Anybody can go on this attraction. Now, another nice thing that has happened as we get to the Peter Pan attraction run through is that they have really updated this queue in recent years. And I find, Leslie, I know that you're lightning laning this attraction almost all of the time. But I'm curious, have you been in the queue maybe during extended evening hours or something like that? Have you visited this Peter Pan queue? Because it is really one of my favorite queues.
Yeah, it's great. I have visited it. I've done it during a Halloween party, and I've done it just late at night, extended evening hours or also just up late, things like that. That's the time to do it. Because again, I don't like standing in line, but this is one of the best queues that Disney has done when it was updated, and lots of great tricks. So why don't you clue us in as to what some of those are?
Yeah, so when you go in, there are like murals or really nice paintings that are honoring the old movie. But I think the real highlight is you end up like walking through the Darling's house. And there are just a lot of neat effects. Like there's just so many details. And because Peter Pan's queue moves so slowly, you have a lot of time to look around and look at these details. Now, one detail that, of course, everyone's going to notice is they use these kind of shadow effects to make it seem like Tinkerbell is flying in the background. There's tink noises and things like that, and that's really nice. But, little details from what's on the tabletops, the toys that the kids have, the nursery is really great. It's just an incredibly well themed queue, and I think they did update that queue because there is so much time that you have to spend inside there, and it takes a real long time to get through. I will also add that Peter Pan's queue, do not try to estimate how long it is by looking from the outside because it is all hidden. And so there's really no way to be like, oh, that looks short. No, like you can't tell at Peter Pan. Don't even try. It's not like, we said when we did Alien Swirling Saucers, you can look and see how far that queue is and estimate that when you're backed up to the place where you get to smash the buttons about 15 minutes. No, with Peter Pan, it's not like that at all. best thing you can do is trust the increasingly not accurate, but probably better than just you guessing wait times that Disney posts. Now, the reason why you're in the queue so long, Leslie, this attraction's throughput capacity, not great.
Yeah, the capacity for this is not great. It can only manage about 700 to 800 passengers per hour. So that's really, really low. And when, like we said, most people want to ride this, this is a classic, it just can't put through a lot of the guests that are in Magic Kingdom every day. So that's why you have long lines for this attraction.
Yeah, it's really brutal. So let's get to the ride run through. Forgot to say this off the top, but the premise and the backstory coming straight from Disney is embark on a high flying adventure over iconic scenes made famous in Disney's animated film. And honestly, that pretty much describes Peter Pan's flight. So you're going to board these galleons, these ships, pirate ships, ostensibly, and it's suspended. So unlike most dark rides where you are on the floor and moving along a slow moving floor, you are suspended to a beam that's above you. And then you're just going on this ship and you see a bunch of scenes. You start in London, then you fly with Peter and the Darling family, second star to the right. You end up in Neverland. There are some questionable scenes that will probably be updated sometime in the next decade or two. Mermaids. And yeah, you basically go through the story. You get to Neverland, Hook's there, causing trouble. I think the really great part, the part that I really love, is you are on Hook's ship and Peter is fighting with Captain Hook. Hook has a sword, Peter has a little knife. How does he win that battle? You're just going to have to use your imagination. Wendy and the kids, they're kind of taken hostage, but at the end, the good guys win. And there's that iconic scene that was really burned into my head when I was 5 years old, even though I think they've updated the animatronic since I was 5 years old. But Captain Hook, TikTok Croc, and, the Captain Hook is kind of about to get eaten. I don't know how to describe it. He's kind of straddling. He's keeping TikTok Croc's mouth open with his legs, trying not to fall in. I figured it out there at the end. So really awesome attraction. Not super long though. I mean, I haven't timed it, but I would say it's got to be a minute or less, or at least it feels that way. Maybe 2 minutes, but not super long. But really iconic scenes. And again, it's just one of those attractions at Disney that you're just kind of gonna do because when you think of Walt Disney World, that's one of the attractions you think of.
For sure. I will say they do pack a lot of action into a small space. This is, kind of one of the smaller dark rides, and like you say, it is pretty short, but you feel like you get the full story of the movie. I guess when your point of comparison is the Disneyland version of this ride, the Walt Disney World version is actually a little bit longer, a little bit grander, so it doesn't feel inadequate to me.
I totally agree with that, and I totally understand what you're saying. Who is this attraction for? I feel like pretty much anyone. I would say only if you're like really afraid of heights should you skip this attraction. Even then, it's pretty dark. So I guess no, you can still tell that you're high up there. So if you're afraid of heights, maybe skip it. But again, it's an iconic attraction. I would say, I guess another person who this attraction is not for is like if you've done it a bunch of times. It's like we don't necessarily go on Peter Pan every time. We, as in you and myself, Leslie, my kids always want to go. I don't know why. They love Peter Pan. So when I'm there with my kids, we got to go on Peter Pan. But yeah, I feel like this is just classic Disney attraction worth going for almost anyone. All right. Genie Plus and Lightning Lane strategy. Leslie, what's the best strategy if you're buying Genie Plus? How are you going to fit it in your overall Genie Plus strategy at Magic Kingdom?
So this is one because the capacity is low and because it is so popular, these Genie Plus return times do go pretty fast. So this is one that you might want to consider getting first. I mean, maybe Jungle Cruise and then Peter Pan, but it depends on the crowd levels. Like if you're going on a busy crowd day and you really want to ride this, I would grab it first. And then that sets you up for later in the day for other attractions that don't have the times pushed as far out. So that, yeah, if you have young kids, I think this is an easy first grab.
I definitely agree with that. The other thing I would say is the times back up really quickly. So if you miss that first one, you may want to grab it during a lunch hour since, you're going to spend at least 45 minutes to an hour eating lunch. And, if you have to at lunchtime grab it for 5 p.m. or something like that, then at least you have to wait the 2 hours to book your next lightning lane no matter what. But at least you've spent some of that time eating lunch or whatever. In terms of standby strategies, I really feel like this is a rope drop or bust attraction. Maybe at the end of the day, like in these upcoming spring break weeks, Disney World is closing, or Magic Kingdom, excuse me, is closing at 11 p.m. Maybe you can go in at like 10:30, 10:45, and the line won't be that long. But if there's only 800 people per hour, let's say conservatively 300 of those people are lightning lane, you're only getting through 500 standby people an hour. And that is incredibly conservative. I'm guessing it's more like 600 lightning lane people are going to go through before you get to go through. So rope drop. And when I say rope drop, you really have to be at the front of the rope, because if you're not in that first 400 people, you're waiting for almost an hour, right? 400 people should be able to get through in the first half hour. So I think it's rope drop or bust. That's the way to do it. That's why, for starters, like Genie Plus at Magic Kingdom is great because it's just such a high density of attractions and it's pretty easy to use. But if you really want to go on Peter Pan, I think Genie Plus is probably the way to go.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right, Joe, let's go ahead and give our rankings. I will give you first go on this one.
Okay, I can't believe I'm doing this since I talked up this attraction so much, but I consider this, this is a B tier attraction for me. Please don't throw your tomatoes at me, just because I feel like it's something that everyone has to do, and you should prioritize it if it's your one and only time or your first time in a long time to Disney World. But because it's so short, because it's so hard to get on, because it's so annoying to like try to get a Genie Plus first or to have to rope drop, God forbid for me, it's just too much. And so I love the attraction on its own, but it's B tier for me just because there's too much around it that is too much of a hassle for me to really put it up into that upper echelon.
All right, all right. You justified your inadequate ranking. I'm going to give it an A. Just for me, it's just so classic Disney. The story, I mean, this is one of the movies I feel like that is really universal, even with the problematic features, of course, from the era it was created in. And everybody knows the story. Everybody wants to see these characters. I mean, Tinkerbell, I think I heard recently on the Disney Dish podcast, is like the biggest selling character other than Mickey. Is that right? So I think people just really, really love, seeing her and seeing Peter Pan. And it's a fun attraction for the whole family that doesn't scare little kids. So we're always, I mean, I wouldn't say we're always doing it, but we're always doing it as a family. I mean, we don't always do it at Disneyland because it doesn't have the Genie Plus possibility there. But with the Genie Plus, yeah, I find that's the way to hack it. And so maybe I'm not as inconvenienced by it.
I hear that. All right. So that's Peter Pan. We're going to take a quick break and come back with It's a Small World. Just a quick reminder, especially for our audio listeners, we are on YouTube. So if you could check us out at youtube.com/@DisneyDeciphered, like, subscribe, comment there, hit that bell button for notifications. We would really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Back to the show. All right, Leslie. So It's a Small World. Everyone loves to hate on this attraction, loves to complain about the song being stuck in their head forever. Tell us a little bit about the history of this attraction and why it's so important in Disney World, or just Disney, excuse me, history.
All right. So first we should just mention this is located in Fantasyland. It's basically directly across from where Peter Pan is located, headed towards the Tangled bathrooms. And at Walt Disney World, it was actually an opening day 1971 attraction. But those who are Disney history geeks and Disneyland fans will know that Disneyland was the original, and Disneyland's version was created for the 1964 through 65 World's Fair. That was sort of like the genesis of a lot of grand Disney attractions and experimentation during that era. So we got a lot of great things that came out of that World's Fair and what Disney did for that. The song was composed by the Sherman Brothers. They're known, of course, for Mary Poppins and lots of other Disney music. So They were drafted to create an iconic song that has definitely stood the test of time, for better or for worse. And then I think another name that a lot of folks know about this attraction is Mary Blair, who was the designer of the ride. She had a very distinct style. She did that mural in the Contemporary, so much else for Disney that you can kind of spot her influence. But one other thing we should mention, Joe, there is a version of It's a Small World in every Disney park except which one?
Shanghai, and I forget. I used to know why, but I don't anymore.
I
So
knew why too, but I don't remember anymore either. But I'm gonna
yes,
ride the Tokyo Disney version here coming up in a couple of weeks. I didn't get to ride it in Paris; it was closed when I was in Paris.
I really like the Paris one. That Paris one was the first one where, because I hadn't been on Disneyland yet, Paris one was the first one where there were like Disney characters in it. I know people don't like that. I loved that though, and there are not Disney characters in the Walt Disney World version. Now, the premise from Disney, they say embark on a whimsical boat ride past a jubilant chorus of children from around the globe singing your favorite song. I just added that last part. The queue, there's really not much going on in the queue. You just kind of, there's that facade, like that classic 2D facade of what looks like not like a series of castles or houses together, and the funny clock with the numbers and all that stuff. But really, you just kind of, it's indoors, unlike Disneyland because it rains all the time in Walt Disney World. But you just kind of there's a couple switchbacks on the top floor, but you really just go down a ramp, hang a right, hang another right, and then you're there loading onto the boats. One reason why the queue isn't that long, Leslie, is because, I mean, compared to Peter Pan, like this is the opposite of Peter Pan when we talk about capacity.
Yeah, this is a real people eater. The capacity is about 2,700 guests per hour. If you've seen the boats, they have 6 rows, and you can fit 3 to even 5 people per row if it's like little kids. So you can cram a lot of people into these boats, and they move through pretty quickly.
The other thing I've noticed is like they're not even cramming you with other guests like in the same row unless it's like really busy and it's just two of you. But like any group of three or more, you're going to get a row to yourself. So it's not like you have to share with people as well. So that's pretty great. Now, I talked a little bit about it. I know that there are no characters, but I guess tell us a little bit about this ride run through. So the concept is that we are on this boat ride and we're visiting just different places in the world, right?
Yeah, so they call it the happiest cruise that ever sailed. And you're floating through different regions of the world, and they're all populated by these audio animatronic children that are dolls, and they're wearing clothes native to their countries, singing the same song, sometimes in different languages, because we're all united together, kumbaya, et cetera, et cetera. It's actually a really sweet message. I shouldn't even try to mock it. It's a great message, and obviously makes sense for its World's Fair heritage. So the rooms are organized geographically. Like the first room at the Disney World version is Europe, and you'll see different scenes. In a single room, you'll see one that's clearly England, one that's clearly France, et cetera, et cetera. And then you enter Asia. The Middle East and Africa are kind of jammed in together, and then Latin America, and then finally the South Pacific. And then the last room is a room where all the dolls are together, all dressed in white from around the world. And that's where you'll see like a little hint of the USA. I think there's like a cowboy and an Indian, but very, very subtle, the America reference. This is not Hall of Presidents. And they're all together singing the song. And like you say, no characters in this version, just the dolls. But it's a great message. And then what's at the end, Joe? We should mention the end.
Well, before you
Maybe.
get to the end, I will say that in that room, that final room, the white room, you may be in there for an extra 10 minutes because that's where, when they're running extra boats, that's where the boats back up. And so you may get stuck there for a little while. But if you have Magic Band Plus, even the old Magic Band Mark IIs, as long as the batteries are still working in them, they will magically figure out your name and say goodbye to you on the screens on the way out. And so obviously it's just a couple people per boat, but that's really cute and really exciting. It's never happened to me, but when your kid's name gets called or shown on the screen, that can be really exciting. All right, so who is this attraction for? I would say it's really for nearly everyone. Again, like just classic Disney attraction, you kind of got to do it, in my opinion, unless you're incredibly sick of the song. but I feel like you really can't be sick of the song unless you go to Disney all the time because, it repeats a lot. But I mean, the reason why you're sick of it is because it's so catchy.
Yeah, totally agree. This really is for everyone. Like you said, there's no height restriction or anything like that. I mean, I've definitely had babies in carriers on me. There's not even like a seatbelt or a bar or anything like that. This is as easygoing as it goes. There's truly nothing scary. I mean, maybe you could say like Captain Hook and Peter Pan is a little bit scary or a crocodile, but like there really is nothing scary in this ride. This is my son's favorite Disney ride, has been since he was a baby, and even now at 10 years old, this is a must do for our family.
Quick funny story for you, Leslie. For some reason, from the ages of 6 to 8, my oldest daughter found the hippo and their eyes incredibly disturbing. I feel like I may have told this story before, but just in case, if any other parents have had kids go through the same thing, it was like the most bizarre thing. She refused to go on It's a Small World. When we finally forced her to go because we were going as a whole family, she covered her face, hid in one of our laps for the entire scene where the hippo was. So it's so funny. Now it's just a big running joke in our family, but I don't know. Kids get scared by the funniest things.
That's fair. I stand corrected. And I guess I should correct myself as well, because the Disneyland version has, in the white room at the very end of it, has this big sun with these big bright eyes. And my son calls that the creepy sun. And so now, like, our inside joke is every time I'm at Disneyland, I'll snap a picture of it and text it to him if he's not with me and be like, look what I see, bud.
I
So
do the
I
same
guess
exact thing. I do the same exact thing.
so I
Texting the
guess I
picture.
guess kids can be scared by anything, but or creeped out by anything.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. But all right, in terms of getting on the attraction, Genie Plus is usually available for a substantial part of the day. If you're seeing Genie Plus back up on It's a Small World, it's a bad day. And maybe just go back to your hotel and go to the pool if that's the case. One tip I will say for Genie Plus though is a lot of times, even if the wait is like 20, 30 minutes, there might be a return time that's 10, 15 minutes, maybe sometimes even 5 minutes away from whatever time it is right then. If that's the case, don't wait in the standby line for 20 to 30 minutes unless you plan to ride It's Small World twice for some reason, but most of you are not going to do that. Just grab the Genie Plus. Remember, you can go in 5 minutes early. So if it's 15 minutes, then you only have to wait 10 minutes and just go to the bathroom, get some popcorn or something, wait a little, and then go in. I find that this is an attraction that, you can be really efficient with on Genie Plus. In terms of standby, Leslie, I don't see it except for on bad days. Like, it doesn't back up past 30 minutes. Really, 45 minutes is the longest I've seen it on a normal day. Obviously, during the holidays and things like that, it can get up to 60 or more. Any other standby strategies that you would share besides maybe don't rope drop it?
Yeah, don't rope drop it. It's open during early entry, but you don't need to do it. So, I mean, this can definitely be one of those ones where maybe you're hitting like 3 Fantasyland attractions during early entry and the lines are starting to build for the other ones, and then you hit this one. So, this is kind of the second round if you're going to stand by line it. But even still, like, I've gone on it in a standby line in the middle of the afternoon. If you're there on a not very busy day, like, the line could actually be quite reasonable. And so this might be something that you're doing while you're getting other Genie Pluses, and being efficient with that. So yeah, great attraction. I'm grateful for the people eating. One thing I didn't mention, Joe, but we should mention, this is an excellent attraction if you are a nursing mom, because the ride is long enough that you can sit in air conditioning and get in a feeding and not be slowed down. So it's about 10 minutes. It's a little longer at Disneyland, so even more efficient there. Just something to keep in mind. I'm many years removed from that, but it can save some folks.
And also, in the same vein, even if you're not nursing, if you just need to rest, get off your feet for a while, especially if you've Genie Plus it and you don't have to wait, it's a great place to rest. All right, Leslie, I offended everyone with my tier ranking for Peter Pan. What tier ranking do you have for It's a Small World?
Well, maybe it's my turn to offend. I'm giving it a B. And that's because my point of comparison, again, is that Disneyland version that's longer and better with the characters and the bigger facade and just a grander OG version of the attraction. This definitely feels like Small World light, but it's still good. And in fact, I probably do it more than Peter Pan just because it is easier to get on. But it is beloved by everybody in the family. But so maybe I'm a little sad to give it a B, but I'm giving it a B. What about you?
Yeah, so this is an A tier attraction for me. I maybe it's part of my age, and half of that is nostalgia. The other half is I just need to get off my feet, and I like to just relax and rest in there. Doesn't have the best service, which is I guess a good or a bad thing. Cell service, that is, which means I'm not even on my phone the whole entire time when I'm in there. So I'm just kind of relaxing, soaking it in. This is an A tier attraction for me. The headline from this episode, I guess, is Joe thinks Small World is better than Peter Pan. What are you gonna do?
All right, all right. Well, you heard it here first, Joe. All right, well, why don't we close this out with a traditional Disney do or don't? What do you have, Joe?
Okay, my Disney don't, and this is not as much a Disney don't as a warning to people. Disney, don't let go of your kids' hands when you're walking through Small World and Peter Pan's passageway, because that is one of the biggest choke points in all of Disney World, and it is so crowded there, like crowded to the point where like I'd actually be nervous about losing my kids, and you have to go through there. That's why it's such a choke point, but it is really tough. And then sometimes Peter Pan's lightning lane spills out into that walkway as well. So it is just really tight in there. I've said multiple times on this podcast, my wife really hates really large crowds and like feeling crammed in. And that passageway between Small World and Peter Pan is a place where you will really feel that. I'm not necessarily saying walk around like the long way, because the reason why people cut through there all the time is because it's a really short way to get between Liberty Square and Fantasyland. But definitely just bear that in mind. Keep your kids close to you while you're going through there. It's just so many people, and do not set that as a meeting place. Tangled bathrooms at least if you're going to meet to go to a Small World. That's really crowded too. Just meet in front of just meet inside Pinocchio Village House. No one goes in there. Okay, meet there. You can wait in air conditioning if you got to meet someone.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that's like a Disneyland style choke point. And so I don't know why that got designed that way. Disney should have known better by then, but it is probably the worst choke point anywhere at Disney World if I can think about it.
All right, so that does it for our ride guide for the classic Fantasyland attractions, Small World and Peter Pan. If you have any thoughts, what are your kids scared of in Small World? Let us know. DisneyDeciphered@gmail.com, at WWDeciphered on Twitter, or on Instagram, Disney Deciphered. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And other than that, Leslie, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And I will see you sending a selfie of you and the creepy sun to your son.
Thanks, Joe.